In a galaxy far away, there was a kingdom known for its great power and wealth. The palace was a place of beauty, shining with jewels and golden halls, a place where aliens of different races came and went, following the rules of the kingdom. At the heart of this palace lived Selena, the princess. She was an alien of great beauty, with skin like soft silver, and her eyes sparkled like the stars. Many admired her, but few understood the pain she hid behind her smiles. The princess, though adored by all, was trapped in her world, trapped by the rules and traditions of her family and her people. Selena was meant to marry a prince from a faraway planet, a prince she had never met. Her parents, the rulers of the kingdom, had arranged this marriage to secure alliances with other powerful races. It was a duty that Selena could not refuse. Despite her beauty and status, she was not free to choose whom she loved. She spent most of her days inside the palace, preparing for the wedding that would seal her future. Then there was Leo, a young human slave. He had been brought to the kingdom many years ago after his planet was conquered. The humans were seen as weak and were treated poorly by the other races. Leo had never known freedom. He worked day and night in the royal palace, doing the menial tasks that no one else wanted to do. Cleaning, cooking, carrying heavy loads, his life was filled with work and silence. He lived in the shadows, unseen by most, but always watching. Leo was not like the other slaves, however. He had a kind heart, and though the others often treated him poorly, he kept to himself, finding comfort in his thoughts. His days were lonely, and the nights felt even longer. He often stared out at the stars, wondering what life could be like if he had the freedom to choose his own path. One day, Leo was summoned to the princess's chambers to deliver a message. It was not the first time he had been there, but today felt different. As he entered, he saw Selena sitting by the window, her gaze lost in the distance. She looked so serene, yet something in her eyes spoke of sadness. "Leo," she said softly, without turning to face him. "Please come in." Leo hesitated at the doorway. He had been trained to keep his distance from the princess, never to speak unless spoken to, and always to bow his head. But something about the way she called his name made him step forward. "Yes, princess?" he asked, his voice respectful but quiet. Selena smiled faintly, still looking out the window. "Please just call me Selena." She paused and turned her gaze to him, her eyes meeting his for the first time. "You work so hard, I don't think I've ever thanked you for everything you do." Leo blinked in surprise. It was rare for someone of her status to speak to him like this, without the cold formality that was usually required. "It's my duty, princess. ... Selena," he corrected himself, still unsure of the new closeness between them. Selena's eyes softened, and she stood up, walking over to the small table where Leo had placed the message. "I know it is," she said quietly, "but I still appreciate it. You're always so kind, even when others treat you badly. You don't deserve it." Leo was taken aback. No one had ever spoken to him like this, with such warmth and understanding. He had always kept his head down, avoiding the cruel remarks and the sneers of those around him. But here, in the presence of the princess, there was something different. Something that made him feel seen for the first time. "Thank you, Leo," said, his voice almost a whisper. There was a long silence between them, as they both stood in the room, neither knowing what to say next. But then Selena spoke again, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't want to marry him." "Leo," she said, her eyes downcast, her words heavy with emotion. Leo frowned. "Marry who, Your Highness?" "The prince," she replied, her voice breaking, "the one my parents have chosen for me. I don't want to be with him, but I have no choice. It's my duty to my family, ... to my kingdom." Leo was stunned. He had always known that Selena's marriage was arranged, but hearing her speak so openly about it made him realize how trapped she truly was. I'm sorry," Leo said, unsure of how to comfort her. He didn't know what it was like to have a choice, but he could understand the pain of being forced into something you didn't want. Selena sighed deeply, turning back to the window. "It's not just that, it's everything. I'm trapped in this palace, surrounded by rules and expectations. I can't even choose my own life. I have to do what my parents say, even if it means marrying someone I don't love. Leo stepped closer, his heart aching for her. He had never seen her like this vulnerable, unsure. But you're strong, princess. You don't have to do anything you don't want to. You have the power to choose your own life. Selina turned to face him again, her eyes wide. Do you really think so? Leo nodded. I may be a slave, but I know what it's like to want something more. We all deserve to be free, to live our lives the way we choose. You deserve to be happy, Selina. For the first time, Selina smiled. It was a small, fleeting smile, but it made Leo's heart race. He had never seen her smile like this before. It was a smile full of hope, a smile that made him feel like they could both escape the chains that held them. I wish I could believe that, she whispered. They stood there for a long time, the silence between them filled with unspoken words. Leo didn't know what the future held, but for the first time, felt like there was a chance, just a small chance, that he could be more than a slave. Maybe, just maybe, he could be someone important to the princess. As Selina looked at him, something in her eyes softened. She didn't say anything, but the way she looked at him told Leo everything he needed to know. Maybe in some small way, he had already become someone important to her. As the days passed in the royal palace, Leo and Selina's bond grew stronger, though neither of them fully understood what it meant. They had been brought together by fate, two individuals from entirely different worlds. Leo, the lowly human, slave, and Selina, the princess with a life planned out for her, lived in two separate worlds, and yet they found comfort in each other's presence. Every time Leo was called to the princess's chambers, he felt nervous, unsure of how to act or speak. But with Selina, it was different. She never looked down on him, never expected him to behave in a certain way. She spoke to him as if they were equals, something Leo had never experienced before. It was a small comfort in a world that often felt cold and unwelcoming. One day, as Leo was working in the gardens, he heard the soft sound of footsteps behind him, turned around and saw Selina walking towards him. She was wearing a simple dress, her silver skin glowing softly under the light of the twin suns above. Her hair flowed behind her like a river of starlight. She looked every bit the princess, but there was something different in her eyes. Something that told Leo she was more than just her title. Leo, she said, her voice soft and calm. I need to talk to you. Leo stood up straight, feeling a wave of warmth spread through him. It wasn't often that the princess sought his company outside of his duties. Yes, Your Highness, he asked, his tone respectful but curious. Selina smiled faintly. Please, I've told you before. Call me Selina. I want to talk to you as a friend, not a princess. Leo nodded, feeling a slight blush creep across his cheeks. He wasn't used to being treated with such kindness, and it made his heart race. Of course, Selina. What's on your mind? Looking hesitated for a moment, looking out over the gardens. The flowers, which were once her favorite, now felt like a reminder of the life she was expected to lead. The life that was already decided for her. Do you ever feel like you're meant for something more? She asked, her voice distant. Leo frowned, unsure of what she meant. I don't know what you mean, Selina. I am a slave. I do what I'm told. I don't get to choose what I want. Selina turned to face him, her expression filled with sadness. But don't you wish you could choose? Don't you ever wonder what it would be like to be free, to live your life however you want? Leo felt a pang in his chest at her words. He had always wished for freedom, but he had never thought it was something he could have. He'd been born into a world where his worth was measured by his labor, and his life was controlled by the whims of others. He had learned to accept that. I don't know, Leo said quietly, looking down at his hands. Sometimes I dream about being free, but it feels impossible. People like me don't get that kind of choice. Selina's eyes softened. She stepped closer to him, her voice barely above a whisper. I know what it's like to be trapped, Leo. I feel like I'm always being told what to do, who to marry, where to go. My life isn't my own. But I want more. I want to be free. Leo's heart raced at her words. She was trapped in a way he could never fully understand, but he could see the pain in her eyes. He could feel the weight of her words in his chest. A reminder of the struggles they both faced, though in different ways. "I don't know how to help you," Leo said softly. "I'm just a slave. I have no power, no voice. But if there was something I could do, I would." Selena smiled, a tear slipping down her cheek. "You already have, Leo. You listen. You care. That's more than anyone else has ever done for me." Leo was taken aback by her words. He had never thought that simply being there for someone could mean so much. He had always tried to stay quiet, to do his job and stay out of the way. But now, in this moment, he realized that even small acts of kindness could make a difference. "I'll always be here for you." "Selena," Leo said quietly, his voice filled with sincerity. "No matter what." For the first time in a long while, Selena felt a sense of peace. She had been surrounded by people who only saw her as a princess, as a symbol of power, but Leo saw her as a person, someone with dreams and fears, someone who needed a friend. And in that moment, Selena knew that no matter what happened, she would never forget this simple, honest connection they shared. Days turned into weeks, and Leo and Selena's bond deepened. They continued to talk when they could, sharing their hopes and fears, their dreams and regrets. Leo found himself thinking about Selena more and more, his heart growing fonder of her with each passing day. He had never imagined that something so simple, so innocent, could make him feel this way. But he could not deny the way his heart raced whenever she smiled at him, or the way his thoughts drifted to her when he was alone. Selena, too, found herself thinking of Leo. She had never imagined that a slave, someone who was meant to serve her, could become so important in her life. But Leo was different from the others. He treated her as an equal, as a person, not just a princess. She realized slowly that she had begun to look forward to their conversations, to the moments when they could talk without the weight of royal duties hanging over them. One afternoon, as they sat together in the royal gardens, Leo shared a simple story about his childhood, about the small village he had once lived in, before the kingdom had taken over his planet. Selena listened intently, fascinated by his words. She had never known life outside the palace walls. Leo's story gave her a glimpse into a world she could never fully understand. "Thank you for sharing that with me," Selena said, her voice filled with gratitude. "You've lived through so much, and yet you're still so kind." Leo smiled, his heart swelling at her words. "It's all I know," he said quietly. "Even in the darkest times, kindness is something I try to hold on to." Selena nodded, a sense of longing filling her heart. She wished she could be more like Leo, strong yet gentle, free yet bound by duty. But for now, all she could do was cherish these moments with him. These simple moments where they could just be two people, not a princess and a slave. "I'm glad we met, Leo," Selena whispered, her eyes meeting his. Leo's heart skipped a beat. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew one thing for sure. He would always cherish the moments he had with her. The days in the palace continued to pass by in a quiet blur, and though the royal palace was always bustling with people, for Selena, each day felt more suffocating than the last. She had never been able to escape the heavy weight of her responsibilities, but now it was worse. Her thoughts were always on Leo, the one person who had made her feel like a human being and not just a princess trapped in a cage. Leo, for his part, had never expected to find someone who understood him in this strange, distant world. The other slaves treated him as just another servant, and the nobles and royals never spared him a glance. But Selena, with her soft silver skin and eyes full of dreams, saw something in him that others did not. She saw his kindness, his honesty, and the depth of his soul. Leo had never felt more seen. It wasn't long before their conversations turned to more personal topics. Selena began to open up to him about her thoughts on her marriage to the prince from another planet. The idea of being with someone she didn't love, simply to strengthen political ties, filled her with a sadness she could not explain. She had always known this was the path that had been laid out for her. But now that she had tasted the sweetness of freedom in the form of Leo's friendship, she found herself questioning everything. One evening, as the golden sun began to set behind the palace walls, Leo found Selina standing by the fountain in the garden. Her back was to him, but her posture was stiff, as though the weight of the world was on her shoulders. The fountain's water sparkled in the fading light, but Selina's face looked pale and distant. "Selina," Leo called softly, his voice gentle. She turned to him, her eyes weary, but still holding a glimmer of the warmth that had drawn him. "To her, Leo," she said, a faint smile tugging at the corners of her lips. "I was just thinking." Leo stepped closer, unsure of what to say. He knew something was troubling her, and he had a feeling it had to do with the prince and the marriage that loomed over her life. "What's on your mind?" Selina sighed deeply and walked over to the edge of the fountain, gazing into the water, as though it might hold the answers to her questions. "I've been thinking a lot about my future lately," she said quietly, "about the life I'm supposed to live and the choices I have no control over." Leo listened intently, his heart aching for her. He knew how it felt to be trapped in a life you didn't want, but he couldn't imagine the kind of pressure she was under. She was a princess, bound by duty, while he was just a slave, with no power to change anything. "I don't want to marry him, Leo," Selina continued, her voice breaking slightly. "I don't love him. I don't even know him. But my family insists on it. They say it's the only way to secure peace for our kingdom." "I don't know what to do." Leo's heart went out to her, could see the pain in her eyes, the fear of losing herself to a life she never wanted. It wasn't fair. He wanted to tell her she had a choice, but he knew that was a dream for someone like him. Someone who had nothing but his thoughts and his heart. "You don't have to marry him, Selina," Leo said softly, his voice filled with conviction. "I know it might seem impossible, but you deserve to be happy. You deserve to choose who you spend your life with." Selina looked at him, her eyes wide with disbelief. "I wish it were that simple, Leo. I wish I could just choose. But it's not. My kingdom, my family. They expect me to do my duty." Leo stepped closer, his heart pounding in his chest. "I understand that," he said quietly. "But sometimes duty can make us forget who we really are, can make us forget what we truly want." Selina stared at him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. She didn't speak, but there was something in her gaze, a flicker of something, that made Leo's heart race. For a brief moment it felt like the whole world had stopped, like it was just the two of them in that garden, standing in the stillness of the evening. "I've never told anyone this," Selina said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I don't want to live like this anymore. I don't want to be a princess trapped by my title. I want to be free. I want to choose my own path." Leo's heart skipped a beat. He had never imagined that Selina would feel this way. He had always assumed that, as a princess, she had everything she wanted. But now, seeing her so vulnerable, he realized just how much she was suffering. "I want that too," Leo said quietly. "But I don't think either of us can have it. Not in this palace. Not in this life. But—" He hesitated, unsure of what he was about to say. "Maybe there's another way." Selina looked at him, her brow furrowing in confusion. "What do you mean?" Leo took a deep breath, his thoughts racing. He didn't know how to fix the situation, but he couldn't stand seeing her like this. He wanted to do something, anything, to help her. He thought for a moment, and then spoke, his voice steady, but filled with hope. "Maybe we don't have to live like this anymore. Maybe we can run away. I don't know where we would go, but I know there has to be somewhere where we can be free, can leave this palace, leave the kingdom, and start a new life. Together." Selina's eyes widened in shock. "Run away? But where would we go? And what about my family? What about the kingdom?" Leo shrugged. "We can figure that out. We don't need anyone else's approval. We don't need to follow the path that's been laid out for us. We can make our own way, on our own terms." Selina was silent for a long time, her mind racing with the possibilities. Could she really leave everything behind? Could she truly break free from the life that had been decided? For her, the thought of running away with Leo, of escaping the confines of her royal duties, was both terrifying and exhilarating. "I don't know," Selina whispered, her voice trembling. "I don't know if I'm brave enough." Leo smiled gently, his heart filled with compassion. "You don't have to be brave, Selina. You just have to believe in yourself. You deserve to be happy. I'll be with you, every step of the way." For a moment there was only silence between them, but it was a silence full of promise. Selina stared at Leo, her heart swelling with emotion. She had never felt so alive, so full of possibility. Maybe, just maybe, Leo was right. Maybe they could have a life together, a life of their own choosing. "I'll think about it," she said softly, her voice filled with uncertainty, but also with hope. "I'll think about what you said," Leo nodded, his heart light with the knowledge that, for the first time, Selina was beginning to see the world beyond the palace walls. She was beginning to see the possibility of freedom. The days in the palace were growing harder for Selina. The pressure of her royal duties, the wedding that loomed over her future, the life that had already been chosen for her, weighed heavily on her heart. But now, there was a new spark in her eyes, a glimmer of hope that Leo had given her. He had opened her eyes to the possibility of a life beyond the palace, a life where she could choose her own path. For the first time in a long while, she found herself dreaming of escape. Leo had become more than just a servant to her. He was her confidant, her friend, and in some ways, the person she trusted more than anyone else in the world. He was kind, strong, and selfless, qualities she admired deeply. But even though she wanted to leave to break free from the chains of her royal life, there was fear inside her. The idea of running away seemed impossible. The royal family would never forgive her. The kingdom would fall into chaos without her. Marriage to the prince. It was all so overwhelming. But Leo had not given up on the idea. Every day he spoke to her of freedom, of the possibilities that lay beyond the palace walls. He painted a picture of a life where they could live as equals, where they could make their own choices and find their own happiness. One evening, there the soft glow of the twin suns began to set, casting a warm light over the palace gardens. Leo found Selina sitting by the fountain, lost in thought. The cool breeze rustled the leaves of the trees, and the sound of water splashing in the fountain filled the silence. "Selina," Leo called softly, approaching her slowly. She turned her head toward him, her eyes tired but full of something new, a determination. "Leo," she said, her voice steady, "I've been thinking." Leo sat beside her, careful not to invade her space. "About what?" "About what you said," she replied, her gaze fixed on the water. "About running away." Leo's heart raced. "You're still thinking about it?" Selina nodded. "I am. It's a big decision. I can't stop thinking about how different my life could be if I were free. If we were free." Leo looked at her, his heart filled with hope. "We can be, Selina. We can find a way to make it happen. Together." She turned to look at him, her eyes searching his face as if trying to find the strength she needed. "But it's not just about us, Leo. It's about the kingdom, my family. I'm the princess. People depend on me." Leo's expression softened, and he reached out, placing a hand gently on hers. "I understand. But sometimes, the things we're expected to do aren't the right things. You don't have to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. You deserve to live for yourself, not for others." For a moment, Selina said nothing. She thought about her family, her kingdom, the responsibilities she had been born into. She thought about the life she could have with Leo, a life where they could make their own choices. But the thought of leaving everything behind was terrifying. "I want to believe that," Selina whispered, "but it feels impossible. What if we're caught? What if we fail?" Leo squeezed her hand reassuringly. "We won't fail. We'll stick together. We'll be careful, and we'll find a way to make it work." Selina hesitated, but then she looked at Leo, her heart filled with something she hadn't felt in a long time: hope. "Okay," she said softly. "Let's do it. Let's leave." Leo smiled, a smile full of warmth and relief. "We'll go tonight," he said. "The palace is busy with preparations for the engagement. Everyone will be distracted." Selina's heart raced at the thought of leaving everything behind. But the fear in her chest was overshadowed by a growing excitement, a feeling she hadn't experienced before. She was finally taking control of her own fate. That night, as the stars twinkled brightly above the palace, Leo and Selina slipped out of the royal gardens and into the shadows. They moved quietly through the palace, avoiding the guards and the servants careful not to draw attention to themselves. They had a plan, but it was risky. It was their only chance to escape before the royal family noticed they were gone. They reached the hidden door at the back of the palace, the door that led to the secret tunnels beneath the castle. Leo had discovered it years ago, during his time working in the palace. It was a place few knew about, and it was their best chance to escape unnoticed. "Are you ready?" Leo asked, his voice low. Selena nodded, her heart pounding in her chest. "Yes," she whispered. "I'm ready." They entered the tunnels, and the air grew cooler as they moved deeper underground. The walls were damp, and the only sound was the echo of their footsteps. As they made their way through the dark pasts, it felt like hours before they finally emerged from the tunnels and found themselves outside the palace walls, standing in the cool night air. The palace loomed behind them, a symbol of everything they were leaving behind. Leo turned to Selena, his expression serious. "We can't go back now. This is it." Selena looked at him, her face a mixture of fear and excitement. "I know, but I don't want to go back. I want to live. I want to choose my own life." Together they began walking into the unknown, not knowing where they would go or what the future would hold. But for the first time in a long time, Selena felt free. Free from the chains that had bound her, free from the life that had been chosen for her. She didn't know what was ahead, but with Leo by her side, she felt like anything was possible. They didn't speak as they walked through the night, the only sound being the soft rustle of their footsteps on the ground. The world seemed endless, full of possibilities. And for the first time, Selena believed that maybe, just maybe, she could find happiness. She could find freedom. And maybe, with Leo by her side, they could create a new life together. The journey away from the palace had been long, and the night felt endless. Leo and Selena walked in silence, their steps soft against the cold earth. The world around them was dark, the stars above their heads the only light guiding their path. They had no map, no clear destination, but they knew one thing for sure: they could not go back. The life they had known was behind them, and now they had to create something new. As the hours passed, the distant sounds of the palace faded into the background, and the quiet of the wilderness enveloped them. The air was cool and fresh, different from the heavy, stifling atmosphere of the royal gardens and the palace halls. For the first time in a long time, Selena felt something she hadn't felt before: freedom. It was a strange feeling, one she wasn't sure how to handle. She had always been told what to do, where to go, who to marry, but now, in the darkness of the night, it was all different. She could choose. "Leo, do you think we're making a mistake?" Selena asked, her voice breaking the silence. Leo, who had been walking ahead of her, stopped and turned. He could see the uncertainty in her eyes. It was natural to feel doubt after making such a big decision. But he also saw the fire of determination in her. She had chosen to leave, just like he had, and that meant something. "No," Leo said firmly, walking back to her side. "This is the right choice. We've taken the first step toward freedom. It's not going to be easy, but we'll figure it out together." Selena looked up at him, her face illuminated by the faint light of the stars. "But where will we go? What if we get caught?" Leo smiled, though his heart was heavy with the weight of their situation. "We'll find a place. There are always safe places for people who want to be free. We just have to keep moving forward." They continued walking, their footsteps a steady rhythm on the ground beneath them. They had no clear plan, but that didn't matter. They had each other, and that was enough for now. The night passed slowly, and as the first light of dawn began to break over the horizon, they reached a small forest. The trees stood tall and quiet, their leaves rustling gently in the morning breeze. It was a peaceful place, far from the noise and chaos of the palace. They decided to rest for a while, to take a break from the long walk they had been on. Selena sat down on a large rock beneath a tree, and Leo sat beside her. They didn't speak for a while, both of them lost in their own thoughts. The stillness of the forest seemed to ease the tension that had built up in them over the past few days. It was as though they had finally reached a place where they could breathe. "We've come so far," Selena said softly, breaking the silence. I can't believe it. We're really free. Leo nodded. Yes, we are. And it's just the beginning. We've only just started this journey, but it's ours now. We get to decide what happens next. Selena smiled, though there was still a hint of doubt in her eyes. I never thought I'd have the courage to do this, to leave everything behind. But being with you, Leo, you've made me believe in something I never thought was possible. Leo's heart swelled at her words. He had never imagined that he would be the one to show her what freedom could feel like. He had always thought of himself as just a slave, someone with no power or choice. But now, with Selena beside him, he realized that together they were strong. Together, they could face anything. We're in this together, Selena, Leo said, his voice full of conviction. And whatever happens, we'll face it side by side. Selena looked at him, her eyes softening with affection. I believe you. As the day began to warm, they decided to gather some food. Leo knew of a nearby stream where they could find fresh water, and they could forage for some berries and roots in the forest. The simple task felt like a small victory. They were no longer confined to the palace, no longer bound by the rules that had held them captive for so long. After gathering what they could find, they sat by the stream, eating their meal in silence. The world around them seemed so peaceful, so different from the chaos of the palace. It was as though they had stepped into another world, a world where they could live freely, without the weight of expectations or the pressure of duty. We'll need to be careful, Leo said after a while. We can't stay in one place for too long. The royal guards will be looking for us. You have to keep moving. Selena nodded, though the idea of constantly being on the run felt exhausting. She had never imagined her life would be like this, always looking over her shoulder, always worried about being caught. But the thought of returning to the palace, of living a life that wasn't her own, was even more unbearable. I know, she said quietly, but for the first time in my life, I feel like I have a choice. I can make my own decisions, and that's worth everything. Leo smiled at her, his heart light with the hope that they could build something together. Something real. We'll find a place to call our own, somewhere safe, and then we'll be free. We won't have to look over our shoulders anymore. Selena smiled back, the weight in her chest lifting for the first time in ages. I believe you, Leo. I trust you. The rest of the day was spent in quiet conversation as they continued on their journey. The forest seemed to stretch endlessly before them, but for the first time, it didn't feel like they were running away from something. It felt like they were running toward something, toward a new life, toward freedom, toward each other. As the sun began to set, they found a small clearing where they could rest for the night. The air was cool, and the stars above seemed to shine brighter than ever. Selena lay back on the soft grass, looking up at the sky. For the first time, she felt at peace. The life she had left behind, the life she'd been forced into, seemed so distant now. She had no idea what the future held, but she knew one thing. She was no longer a princess bound by duty. She was a free woman with the power to choose her own path. And as Leo lay beside her, their hands touching in the quiet night, Selena realized that she was exactly where she was meant to be. With Leo, in this new world, she could finally be free. The days turned into weeks, and Leo and Selena found themselves living a life they had only dreamed of. The wilderness became their home, a place where they could live freely, away from the kingdom that had tried to define their lives. The journey was not without its challenges. There were days when food was scarce, and nights when the cold seemed unbearable. But each day they spent together made them stronger, more determined to create the life they had chosen. Selena had never imagined that she could be happy without the luxuries and comforts of the royal palace. But here, in the quiet of nature, she discovered a strength within herself she never knew she had. She learned how to build fires, how to find food, and how to navigate the world outside the palace walls. Every day she grew more capable, more independent. Leo, too, had changed. The man who had once been a slave, bound by the chains of duty and expectation, was now a free man. With Selena by his side, he felt like anything was possible. He had always believed in the power of hope, but now, with each passing day, he saw that hope turn into something real. Together, they were building a future. Despite the freedom they had found, the danger was never far behind. The royal guards were still searching for them, and every day Leo and Selena had to be cautious. They moved from place to place, always staying one step ahead of their pursuers. But even in the face of danger, there was something comforting about knowing that they had each other. Their bond had grown deeper, and with each passing day, their love for each other became more undeniable. One evening, as they sat by a small campfire in the woods, Selena looked at Leo, her eyes filled with emotion. "Did you ever think about what we left behind?" she asked, her voice soft. Leo gazed into the flames for a moment before answering. "I think about it sometimes," he said, "but then I remember why we left. We were never meant to live that life. It wasn't our choice. We had to choose our own path, even if it meant leaving everything behind." Selena nodded, her gaze drifting to the stars above. "I never realized how much I was trapped. Even as a princess, I was never free. I was always bound by duty, by expectations. But now, I feel alive. I feel like I can breathe." Leo smiled, his heart swelling with pride for the woman sitting beside him. "You are alive, Selena. You've always been alive. Now you're just free to live your life the way you want." Selena turned to him, her eyes searching his face. "And you? Are you happy? Truly happy?" Leo's heart beat faster. At her question, he had never felt more alive than he did in this moment, sitting by the fire with the woman he loved. "Yes," he said, his voice steady. "I never imagined this life for myself, but now that I have it, I wouldn't trade it for anything." They sat in silence for a moment, the crackling of the fire, the only sound between them. The world outside their small campfire seemed vast and endless, but in that moment, it felt like nothing else mattered. They were together, and that was enough. As the fire died down and the night grew colder, Selena shifted closer to Leo, seeking warmth. He wrapped his arm around her, pulling her close. She rested her head on his shoulder, feeling a sense of peace she had never known before. The weight of her past life, the palace, the pressure of being a princess, it all seemed so distant. Now, with Leo, she felt like she could face anything. "I'm so glad I found you, Leo," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Leo squeezed her gently. "And I'm glad I found you, Selena. I never thought I would be standing here with you, but now that I am, I know it was meant to be." Selena smiled, her heart full. For the first time in her life, she felt truly understood. She felt loved, not because of her title, but because of who she was. And she realized that, despite all the challenges they had faced, they had built something beautiful together, a life built on love, trust, and freedom. The next day, they decided to move again. They couldn't stay in one place for too long, as the royal guards would eventually track them down. But as they packed their belongings and prepared to leave, Selena felt a sense of calm she hadn't expected. They didn't know where they were going, but that didn't matter. They were free to choose their own path, and that was enough. As they walked through the forest, Selena turned to Leo, her eyes bright with determination. "Where do we go from here?" she asked. Leo smiled, his heart light. "Where we want," he said. "We've got the whole world ahead of us." Selena's smile matched his, and for a moment it felt like the world was theirs to conquer. They didn't need riches or power. They didn't need the palace or the kingdom. All they needed was each other. As the days turned into weeks, their bond only grew stronger. The challenges they faced were not easy, but they faced them together, never doubting their love for each other. Leo and Selena had found something that no one could take away from them: freedom, the love they had for each other. One evening, as they rested by a river, Selena looked out at the water, her thoughts quiet. "I never thought it would be like this," she said, her voice filled with wonder. "I never thought I could be this happy. But now, I know what true freedom is." Leo sat beside her, his hand resting on hers. "You've always been free, Selena," he said softly. "You just had to find your way." Selena smiled, her heart full of gratitude. "And I found it with you." As they sat there by the river, their hands intertwined, they knew that, whatever came next, they would face it together. The world was full of uncertainty, but as long as they had each other, they knew they could overcome anything. Their love, unbroken and strong, was their greatest strength.